In 1095, when Pope Urban II spoke at the Council of Clermont-Ferrand, he forever changed the history of the medieval world with a single sentence. "Deus vult," cried the crowd, and thus began that bloody yet glorious era that continues to fascinate history enthusiasts to this day. Today we present the 10 greatest battles of the Crusades, which sealed not only the fate of the Holy Land, but the future of all Europe. In first place stands the completion of the Siege of Jerusalem in 1099, which was the crown jewel of the First Crusade. Raymond de Saint-Gilles, Count of Toulouse, who had already passed his 60th year, personally led the attack of one of the siege towers against the walls of the Holy City. According to the Gesta Francorum, when the Crusaders finally broke through the walls, such a bloodbath ensued that horses waded ankle-deep in blood. Godfrey de Bouillon, Duke of Lorraine, who had sold all his possessions for the Crusade, did not accept the royal title, but simply called himself Defender of the Holy Sepulchre. The Crusader army besieged Jerusalem for 7 months, while barely 2,000 Muslim guards in the city prepared for their final resistance. Iftikhar ad-Dawla, the city's governor, poisoned every well around the city to make the Crusaders' situation more difficult. Before the July 15th assault, the Crusaders fasted for 3 days and walked barefoot around the city walls, praying to God for victory. According to the account of Arnulf of Malicorne, when they finally managed to erect the siege towers, Duke Godfrey and Prince Tancred of Hauteville had to compete to see who could reach the walls first. When the city was captured, the Crusaders cruelly massacred the Muslim and Jewish population. According to the Arab historian Ibn al-Athir, more than 70,000 people died, including women and children. Jews hiding in synagogues were burned alive. However, this victory secured the establishment of the Crusader states, and the Holy City remained in Christian hands for 200 years. In second place stands the Battle of Hattin in 1187. Guy de Lusignan, King of Jerusalem, made a fatal mistake when he tried to engage Saladin's legendary army in the blazing summer heat, far from water. He deployed the entire army of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, 15,000 men, on this ill-fated campaign. According to Imad ad-Din of Isfahan, the Crusader knights fell like autumn leaves. Saladin brilliantly chose the battlefield. Among the hills near Hattin, where not a single water source was accessible, he patiently awaited the arrival of the Crusader army. In the 45-degree heat of July 4th, the Crusader knights suffered most in their armor. Lord Balian of Ibelin later wrote that he saw knights drinking their own urine to quench their thirst. At dawn of the battle, on Saladin's orders, fires were lit in the dry grass, and the smoke blinded the Crusader battle lines. Count Raymond of Tripoli tried to break through the Arab lines at the last moment, but his army scattered. King Guy finally surrendered, but Reynald de Chatillon, who had continuously violated truce agreements with his raids, was killed by Saladin himself. After the loss of the True Cross, Jerusalem's fall became inevitable. In third place is the Battle of Dorylaeum in 1097, which first showed the world that Western European heavy cavalry could defeat Eastern light cavalry. Sultan Kilij Arslan's horsemen attacked Prince Bohemond of Taranto's vanguard at dawn, and it seemed the entire First Crusade would end there. 12,000 Turkish cavalry surrounded only 3,000 Crusaders. However, Bohemond executed a brilliant tactical change. He arranged his infantry in a tight circular formation while keeping his cavalry as a hidden reserve. The Turks shot arrows at the Crusader shield wall for hours, but could not inflict significant damage. According to Albert of Aachen's Chronicle, by noon, when the Turkish horses were already exhausted, Bohemond launched an unexpected breakout with his heavy cavalry. The Seljuk armies retreated in surprise, and after the battle, the field was full of Turkish dead. This victory laid the foundation for the combat tactics that characterized the Crusades throughout. In fourth place is the Battle of Arsuf in 1191, which testified to the tactical genius of King Richard I of England. The Lionheart personally led the last great battle of the Third Crusade against Saladin. Against the Crusader column marching along the coastal road, Saladin deployed 24,000 men, while Richard had only 15,000 warriors at his disposal. Richard applied brilliant tactics. He let Saladin's cavalry exhaust themselves against his Crusader infantry's shield wall, then launched an unexpected charge with his heavy cavalry. According to Arab sources, the Frankish knights broke through the Muslim lines like lightning through clouds. The Hospitaller and Templar knights particularly distinguished themselves in the battle, advancing without sparing their lives. Garnier de Nablus, Grand Master of the Hospitallers, personally led his cavalry's charge. According to the Arab historian Baha ad-Din, Saladin's army scattered so quickly that the Sultan himself barely managed to escape. Although Richard could not exploit his advantage to recapture Jerusalem, this battle proved that Saladin's army was not invincible. After the victory, Richard and Saladin made peace, which secured the safety of Christian pilgrims in Jerusalem for 3 years. In fifth place stands the Siege of Antioch, which reached its climax in the summer of 1098. The Crusader army camped before the city walls for 7 months, while hunger and disease decimated their ranks. The situation of besiegers and besieged gradually reversed when Kaboga, emir of Mosul, brought 20,000 men to relieve Antioch. Adhemar, bishop of Le Puy, and the Pope's legate walked around the camp every evening, reminding the knights of their original mission. The situation was so desperate that many deserted, including Stephen, Count of Blois, who later falsely spread rumors in Europe that the entire crusade had failed. Prince Bohemond of Taranto finally managed to capture the city with the help of treachery. An Armenian tower guard named Firuz opened the gates for him. But the Crusader victory was only half successful because Kaboga's army surrounded them in the city. A monk named Peter Bartholomew then claimed that he had found the Holy Lance in a vision with which Christ was pierced on the cross. This discovery gave new hope to the Crusaders. On June 28th, they marched out of the city and miraculously defeated Kaboga's superior army. The chroniclers attributed this victory to angelic assistance. If you like this historical journey, share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more exciting stories from the Crusades. In sixth place is the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, which, although not a crusade, without it the First Crusade would never have begun. The catastrophic defeat of Byzantine Emperor Romanos IV by the Seljuk Turks permanently opened the gates of Asia Minor to Muslim conquerors. After the collapse of the Byzantine army, Emperor Alexios I Komnenos was forced to seek Western assistance. Emperor Romanos led nearly 100,000 men on the campaign against Sultan Alp Arslan. The Byzantine army had never been so diverse in composition. Greeks, Armenians, Frankish mercenaries, Cuman cavalry, and even Russian guards fought side by side. Alp Arslan initially deployed only 20,000 men, but with brilliant tactics, he scattered his opponents. The turning point of the battle came when part of the Byzantine forces, influenced by false rumors, believed that the emperor had fallen. Panic took hold of the ranks, and Alp Arslan's cavalry ruthlessly exploited the situation. Emperor Romanos was captured, and although later released, the consequences of the defeat proved fatal. Much of Asia Minor fell into Turkish hands, and it was this territorial loss that Emperor Alexios wanted to recover when he turned to Pope Urban II for help. In seventh place is the Siege of Acre, which took place between 1091 and 1092 and represented the most important victory of the Third Crusade. The recapture of the strategically crucial port city was a joint enterprise of King Richard III of England, King Philip II Augustus of France, and Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I Barbarossa, although Barbarossa had already lost his life en route. The siege lasted nearly 2 years, and both sides made enormous sacrifices for it. Saladin repeatedly tried to relieve the city, but the Crusader forces stubbornly persisted. The city finally surrendered on July 12th, after the defenders could no longer continue their resistance. King Richard I proved that he could unite the rival Crusader groups and lead a coordinated attack. However, after the victory, Richard made a cruel decision. He massacred 3,000 Muslim prisoners when Saladin did not pay the ransom on time. According to Arab sources, the Crusader knights took the prisoners to the walls of the city and executed them in Richard's personal presence. Saladin killed Christian prisoners in revenge, which ended all hope for peaceful agreement. In 8th place stands the naval battle of Lepanto on October 7, 1571, which was fought under the leadership of Don Juan of Austria. This was the last great galley battle in history and simultaneously the last joint enterprise of Christian Europe against the Turks. The united fleet of the Holy League, with 207 galleys and 80,000 men, faced Ali Pasha's Ottoman armada of 310 ships. Venetian galleys played a special role in the battle, which with their armored prows could break through the sides of Turkish ships. Alongside Genoese Admiral Marco Antonio Colonna, Giovanni Andrea Doria, and Venetian Doge Sebastiano Venier, Hungarian oarsmen also fought, who participated in the struggle in memory of the heroic defense of Sigetvar. The death of Miklos Zrinyi was still fresh in memory. The turning point of the battle came when Don Juan personally led his galley against Ali Pasha's flagship. The duel between the two commanders decided the outcome of the battle. Ali Pasha's head was cut off, and after news of his death spread, the Ottoman fleet scattered. After the Christian victory, all of Europe was relieved. They had finally succeeded in breaking Ottoman naval supremacy. In 9th place is the Great Siege of Malta in 1565, which was fought under the leadership of Grand Master Jean de Valette. Sultan Suleiman personally ordered the conquest of Malta to end Hospitaller piracy in the Mediterranean. The Ottoman fleet consisted of 400 ships and transported more than 40,000 men to the island. The Hospitallers' situation seemed hopeless. Only 600 knights and 8,000 Maltese residents stood against the Ottoman superiority. But Grand Master Valette developed a brilliant defensive plan. He prepared the island's 3 main fortresses, St. Elmo, Sanglia, and Birgu castles, so that they could resist by supporting each other. Fort St. Elmo held out for 32 days under the fire of Turkish cannons. The fort's last defenders, only 52 knights and Maltese soldiers, fell on June 23rd, but their resistance so exhausted the Turks that Suleiman was forced to abandon the complete conquest of Malta. When the Sicilian relief fleet arrived on August 24th, the Ottoman army was already in retreat. In 10th place stands the liberation of Vienna in 1683, which represented the last great triumph of the Crusades. King John III Sobieski of Poland lived up to his famous words, "I came, I saw, and God conquered." The Battle of Kallenberg took place on September 12th, when a Christian army of more than 170,000 united to attack Kara Mustafa Pasha's 200,000 Ottoman forces. The Turkish army had been besieging Vienna for 2 months, and under the leadership of Count Ernst Rüdiger von Starhemberg, the defenders had already deployed their last reserves. The city walls had collapsed in several places, and it seemed that Vienna's fall was inevitable. But on September 11th, the relief armies arrived, united forces of Poles, Austrians, Bavarians, Saxons, and Hungarians. King Sobieski personally led the terrible charge of 18,000 Polish heavy cavalry. Such panic broke out in the Turkish camp that Kara Mustafa Pasha barely managed to escape. After the victory, the Christian forces captured enormous booty. The entire equipment of the Turkish camp, including the famous Green Prophet's banner, fell into Christian hands. This victory permanently ended Turkish expansion into Europe. The legacy of the Crusades manifested not only in military terms, but the encounter between Eastern and Western cultures gave new impulses to medieval European civilization. Knowledge of Arab mathematics, medicine, and philosophy reached Europe through the Crusaders, laying the foundation for the intellectual revolution of the Renaissance. The organizational forms of the military orders influenced the development of later military units, while the financial systems developed during the Crusades were precursors to the modern banking system. The international financial network of the Templars, which served the secure money transfer of pilgrims, revolutionized medieval commerce. The hospital system of the Hospitallers laid the foundations of modern healthcare. These institutions survived the Crusades themselves, and their impact can be felt to this day. Thank you for accompanying me on this exciting historical journey. If you want to know more about the effects of the Crusades and the further fate of the military orders, Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with others. See you in the next video, where we'll talk about the secret treasures of the Templars and their mysterious disappearance.